How did you and David Freeman meet, and what brought you and David to write this book, All Electric America, together?
So David and I met at an energy storage conference, and we both were talking about how we weren't moving fast enough towards transforming our energy infrastructure. And we were talking about how we have all of the technology we need to transform to an all-electric, all-renewable energy infrastructure, how it's actually an exciting future, how we have how it's a great resource, and how even if there weren't climate change, we should want to move towards this technology. And we were talking about it, and he called me up and said, do you want to write a book together so that we can write about it and let people know? And when we started writing the book, it was even less well known than it is today. And so I said, yeah, let's write a book. And that's how we decided to do it.
What do you believe is our way forward in solving the climate crisis?
I think that we will all need to do something. To make it happen, you'll need the effort of a lot of people and a lot of avenues. It's not going to just be one thing. You need our entrepreneurs to work on the technology. You need our teachers. You need our engineers. You need our lawmakers to pass laws. Laws are really very important. We're a civilized society. We've passed laws in the past to fight fascism. In World War II we went, and we have civil rights laws. There are things the market can't do, and I think passing laws is helpful as well. And I think what we need to do is continue to work to help get the 21st century clean technologies implemented by developing them as entrepreneurs and engineers, and also buying them in our homes, like buying heating, heat pump heating, or electric cooking in our homes, buying electric vehicles, and helping move this technology forward so that as it gets cheaper, as it gets better, more and more will be implemented. Just like in 1985, we all got personal computers. And in some sense, we're in the phase where the solar and wind energy that we're installing is in the earlier phases. What we'll have in the year 2050 and 2030 is not what we have today. We're not working on DOS, in our 1985 personal computer anymore. We, now we have tons of computing power in our hands, and that connects us to the world. So we have to start today, and we have to work with the technology we have today. And saying we shouldn't do it is like saying we shouldn't have used the personal computer in 1985 because the smartphone didn't exist. So I think we need to start using it and implementing it.
Could you describe the collaboration process?
So Dave and I, we wrote different chapters for the book, and we would get together. He lives in Washington, D.C., near his children, and he's 93 years old. And he's now 93. I live in Portland, Oregon, and we would meet in different places. If he had visited a friend in Hawaii and I came up, he was flying through Seattle, we would meet. We would talk about it, brainstorm, put the book together, and then we would decide on different chapters to write. I would write a chapter, he would write a chapter, and then we would switch chapters, give each other's chapters, and work on each other's chapters, edit them, and then send them back to each other, and then talk about it and argue over whether what we changed should be changed, and how to do it is how we worked on it. So it was interesting that we were able to work together on this process as technology was evolving, as time was moving forward, as different political events were happening. We would get together and continue to massage each chapter like that. And then it was definitely true that we could, with modern technology, be able to collaborate across the country. And it was really kind of exciting to see that.
When you describe an all-electric future in your book, what are you referring to?
So what I'm referring to is that when you move to an all-renewable energy infrastructure, you will be moving ultimately to a clean electric infrastructure, because our energy will be fueled with electricity. So if we're going to run our cars, we're no longer going to run them on oil, we'll be running them on electricity. If we're powering our homes with heat pumps instead of natural gas furnaces, we'll be running them with electricity. And so we're calling it all electric because so much of our energy infrastructure now will be fueled by electricity. And so the reference to all electric is also a reference to the all electric home in the 1950s, that the utilities were trying to promote electrification, and they were trying to bring electricity to 1 million rural homes in the United States. And it was actually Dave's idea to call it All Electric America, because he was born in 1926, I believe. So he was an adult when the all electric home concept was being pushed by the utilities. And the utilities, a number of utilities, ended up collaborating with companies, and one of Whirlpool, Westinghouse, and GE, and Ronald Reagan was the spokesman, and they were pushing the all-electric home. And it was a time when the utilities were actually promoting their product, and now is a time also to start moving to an all-electric future, and an all-electric, all-renewable future. Now we could have hydrogen as well, and hydrogen can be produced with electricity as well, electrolytically, where you split water to make hydrogen, and then you can make hydrogen have hydrogen airplanes or ships or cars, or hydrogen storage as well. So it's still relating to electricity.
Is an all renewable energy infrastructure possible?
It is possible. We have all of the technology, and we have enough resources many times over to do it. There's been some discussion about whether solar panels and wind could do it, but we have about 18 times the energy just from solar PV in rural areas alone. We have the capacity to do that. We have the land, and we can develop it on land that isn't pristine and isn't going to hurt vulnerable species of any type, plants or animals. And we have about 2.5 times or more wind capacity that we would need to electrify, to power all of our energy needs in 2050 as well. So that's just with rural PV and with wind. We have other technologies, geothermal and wind and wave and what have you. So we have that, and we also have enough. It's not going to take up as much land as many folks say it would take up. It's about 0.2% of U.S. land if you don't count spacing. If you count spacing, it's about 1.4% of U.S. land. And then we also have digital technology, since it's distributed and variable, and you would need energy storage to help with the balancing. Our computing technology can manage all of that. We have no problem.
Can natural gas be considered a bridge fuel, and does switching from coal to natural gas reduce greenhouse gases?
So natural gas really isn't a bridge fuel. In some sense, we are still using natural gas, but we need to take our fossil fuel infrastructure offline by about 4% or 6%, if we really want to be safe, 6% each year. And we need to take natural gas offline as well, all fossil fuels. So we need to reduce all emissions by 6% a year, and then we need to be putting renewable energy online. And natural gas, although folks say it's clean, it produces carbon dioxide. And there's also methane that leaks from the infrastructure. But we need to get to zero emissions. So even if there's no leaking, you still produce carbon dioxide. It produces half of the carbon dioxide as coal when it's burned, but it still produces it, so it should come offline. The other problem is with methane leaking. Methane is 120 times more warming than carbon dioxide, and methane is really dangerous. Right now we need to control the warming from happening in the short term, and so the methane that leaks is very powerful towards warming. So we can't quite say, okay, well, let's take natural gas off later and get all the coal off, because of the impact of the methane as well. So it does need to come off, and it shouldn't be a bridge. Even though we are using it. We're going to continue using natural gas as we continue to take it offline. So in that sense, it's already being used as a bridge to it. In some sense, all of the coal as well is being used until we can take it all offline.
So for those people that are saying natural gas is burning clean, it's still emitting CO2.
It's still a greenhouse gas, and it's still emitting greenhouse gases. And the International Panel of Climate Control came out with a study saying we need to keep our warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. And to do that, we have to get to zero emissions. So that means we have to get off natural gas too. So it may not be producing the particulate matter that coal is producing, where we can see the dirt in the sky, and maybe it produces half of the carbon dioxide, but it's still
the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, sort of, except for with the methane, it's actually worse. Can be worse, right? As bad or worse, depending.
How do we make the transformation happen?
So we make it happen by having a lot of different efforts to make it happen. We can, as advocates, go out, and there are campaigns that bring awareness, like the Beyond Coal campaign or Keep It in the Ground campaign, because we do need to keep a lot of our fossil fuel reserves in the ground. We have a greenhouse gas budget, and we can only put so much in the earth, in the sky. And then we can also, as entrepreneurs and business owners, we can invent and create the technology that can make it happen and continue to work on it. Just again, like we worked on our personal computers to make chips smaller and faster and run better, because as we use the technology more, the prices will continue to come down more. So we continue to invest in it, and then we can pass laws. We have renewable portfolio standard laws. Those have been really great for getting them implemented, because it tells the utility how much renewables they need to use and have as part of their generating capacity. And then we can also, as consumers, we can play a part too. We can buy fossil fuel-free technology for our homes. So for heating, when our natural gas furnace gets old, we can buy a heat pump, which can produce heating and cooling. It's a refrigerator. It's like a refrigerator in reverse to heat, but your heat pump can act as not refrigerator. Sorry, I mean it is a refrigerator too, but a air conditioner. It can do air conditioning and it can do heating, and for cooking also you can do electric cooking. So you can get an induction oven, and when your natural gas, if you have natural gas cooking, you can get electric cooking as well, and that helps in the home to take it offline. For a car, when you find a model and a price you're ready for, you can get an electric car as well, and that has a big impact. As a consumer, what we buy, what we do, tells our legislators what we want, and manufacturers too, because they listen to us, by what we buy. So it's really collective. Teachers, business folks, lawmakers, consumers, we all have a part to play.
Can moving to a 21st century all-electric, all-renewable energy future and solving our climate problems happen from the bottom up?
Right, it can happen from the bottom up, in the sense that we can have an impact. And I explained what we can do, but if I give a few examples of when it's actually worked, when we've had an impact. In California, if you think of us as from the bottom up, from what we want, rather than waiting for legislation from above to make it happen, or in California, folks put solar panels on their roof, and a lot of folks put it on. Now there were some net metering laws that were put into place where they were allowed to sell the electricity back, and it made it easier to sell or to put the solar panels on the roof. But what they did is they put solar panels on their roof, and it told the utilities and the lawmakers that that's what they wanted. They wanted renewable energy in California. And one of the reasons it had so much impact was it impacted the utility. The utility felt the presence of those solar panels. And what it did is that it made it so that in the middle of the day, demand for electricity went down. So the utilities load went way down. And that had huge disruption for the utility because all of a sudden they had to turn all of their generation off. So they had their coal plants and their natural gas plants and their nuclear plants. And those things don't just go on and off like that, right? I mean, it's a gradual thing. And before with central generation, utility kind of knew what the load and the demand would be. It was fairly predictable through the day. And when you produce electricity, you have to, when you use it, you have to use it when it's produced. There's no electricity storage in general in the system. So the utility would know what the demand would be, and the operators would manage it. But now all of a sudden, the demand went way down. The sun would come out, folks would go to work, they weren't using that much electricity, and the operators went, oh my gosh, what's going on? We have to turn this off. But then at night, in the evening, folks would come home and the sun would go down. So they'd stop producing electricity with the solar panels. And all of a sudden, the demand and the load for the utility would just spike. It spiked. It was crazy. And the operators then were forced with turning all of their generation back on. But generators don't turn on like that. It's a slow process. So when I've gone to conferences, utility folks spend a lot of time talking about that sequence of events, and it made them react. It made the utilities and the lawmakers say, wow, how do we deal with it? And one of the things that they did is laws were passed in California to procure or for utilities to actually implement energy storage, so that storage is really good at turning on and off, bringing electricity online and managing variable renewable energy. Storage is really good at that. Our natural gas plants and our coal plants, definitely our nuclear plants, are not meant for handling renewable energy. There's some talk that natural gas plants can do it, but they really can't do it as quickly and as efficiently as energy storage. So the commissioners got involved, and they allocated money, or allowed allocation of money to the utilities, and lawmakers in the legislature passed laws saying that it was okay to do storage, and it had an impact. And so California was one of the first places in the country that actually started implementing energy storage. So the point was that from the bottom up, just what we as consumers bought, had an impact. And another time where the consumer had an impact was with electric vehicles. And what happened was in 2016, Tesla had asked for pre-orders for Tesla Model 3s. And 400,000 people put $1,000 down, sight unseen, for Tesla Model 3 vehicles. And all of a sudden, the auto industry woke up. They just woke up because they said, oh my gosh, there's a demand for these vehicles. And before, the German companies some folks from the German companies were making fun of Tesla, like, that's not really a good vehicle. No, it's never going to happen. And people didn't really believe it. And there's still skepticism. There were articles every day coming out saying how Tesla would fail, and there still are. But, but still there was a lot of skepticism in electric vehicles. And it transformed after that, because the auto companies said, wow, there's actually a market for this. And the consumer made their voice heard in that way. It wasn't just calling your legislator and saying, please do this and please pass this law. We as consumers did something that really had a transformative impact.
What changes can we make as a consumer in our home and in our lives?
So as a consumer, we can move to a fossil fuel-free house. We can work to make an energy efficient house and a resilient house. And like I've mentioned, what we do as a consumer can have a really strong impact, but it's very good for us too, because we can take fossil fuels out of our home and take that pollution out of our home in that sense. And so we can move to heat pumps for heating. We can do ground source heat pumps or air source heat pumps. There are cold climate heat pumps. Folks in Maine actually are getting heat pumps, even in Vermont and different places now. There used to be heat pumps were good for the South, but now there's new technology, so you can get those so that you can get rid of your fossil fuel gas burning furnaces. And you can get electric vehicles when they're ready, but you can also get LED lights to make your house more efficient, get efficient appliances. You can do home energy audits and try to make a better envelope to have more efficient homes. We weren't worried about electricity as a society before, about using too much in the years before. So many of our older homes don't have as tight of envelopes because we would just burn electricity like crazy, and so without much thought. And so that's one of the things we can do. We can also have home management systems so that we can manage the electricity in our home. Norway is doing a great job at, I think a number of their houses are managed, so you can manage your light and your heat. So you can actually manage the heat from your house, from your phone, right? And you can look and say, okay, I'm not home, I'm going to turn the heat down, or know that you are coming home, because I have had it where we've turned the heat down and then we forget to turn the heat up, and then the house is cold. And you can turn it up when you're coming home, and all of these things help with if you use less electricity in your house, then you have to build out less electricity. Then the utility doesn't need to build as much generation. And then the other thing you can do is, as a consumer, this can be a microgrid, a small little mini microgrid for yourself. If you put energy storage unit in and solar panels on your roof, you can be more resilient as a house. If the power goes out or there's an issue, then you can run vital needs. And now, as we become more dependent on electricity, it's more, it's better and better to have that, because when the power goes out and then your phone dies and then you can't make a call, we use our landlines less and less. So our computer, then we can't access the internet to send an email, and it's frustrating. And so it's better to have all of these small vital services running.
Is a clean technology transformation happening on its own?
In some sense, it is happening on its own. I mean, this technology is actually a better technology, clean technology. Fossil fuel technology is 20th century technology or 19th century technology. That's the old stuff. In the last turn of the century, we had a energy transformation happen then, and we had new technology. We had electricity come, and we had cars. Ford Model Ts came out, and airplanes, and all of these things. And we're seeing another transformation now happening in this turn of the century. What's happening is that the clean technologies like solar and wind technology, electric vehicles, energy storage are technologies that will get better and better, just like our personal computers, where we have the smartphone now. These technologies will get better, and the prices are dropping. Right now, it is cheaper, the same price or cheaper to build a solar plant and a wind plant as a gas plant. It's actually cheaper to do wind than gas. In many cases, it's cheaper to do solar than natural gas. So the technology, as the prices keep dropping, they'll get cheaper and cheaper than our fossil fuel technologies. So our fossil fuel technologies are dependent on the price of fuel as well. So if you have an internal combustion engine car, to run your car depends on the price of the fuel and the oil, and the fluctuations that we have will impact what the price of it will be. At some point, it's going to be cheaper to drive an electric vehicle than a car. I mean, right now you fuel your car for $1 per gallon equivalent with an electric vehicle. So as the price continues to go down of these technologies, it's eventually going to be cheaper than natural gas plants. Coal plants, it is cheaper than coal plants. Your electric vehicle will be cheaper than to run than the internal combustion car. And so what you'll see is disruption. And you'll see that just like with our digital cameras that took over the film-based cameras, or our cell phones now that have taken the market from the analog phone. You know, we don't have cord-based phones anymore. So, I mean, you can use them. I actually have one for security purposes. So when the electricity goes down, you can still make a call, right? But you know, I think you'll see with the clean technologies that they will disrupt the fossil fuel technologies. These are 21st century technology. Energy storage prices are dropping, and storage is better at managing the renewable energy on the grid than gas plants, for instance. So as the prices continue to drop, you'll just see more and more of this. So even if there were no climate change, this would be happening. You know, it's going to be happening anyway. The question is, will it happen in time for us to not blow our greenhouse gas budget and to keep the temperature rise from being too high? I'm not sure. It could happen faster than we can imagine. You know, I got a film-based camera when I graduated from college, from graduate school, and within 2 years I couldn't find a place to develop my film. So, you know, sometimes it happens like that.
In the last turn of the century, we saw major technological advances with electricity and the automobile. Are we seeing something similar today with renewable energy and other clean technology?
Yeah, we are seeing different advances for sure. We're seeing energy storage technology just take off. There are many different types of energy storage technology. There are flywheels and battery storage. There's energy storage that's in that you can pump into the ground and take out, and air compressed air storage, and there's kind of a menagerie of storage technologies, and there's different types of solar PV technologies now as well. Not solar PV, but solar technologies, concentrated solar PV, and people are continually thinking about how to make the utilization of solar energy more efficient even. So wind technology, they're talking about putting wind turbines higher and higher above where birds fly, above where the wind blows all the time, so that we can continually produce wind technology. So we are really in the beginning stages, in some sense, of this clean technology, like at the last turn of the century when we had the Ford Model T, you know, and folks were riding around in that in that car. We are really, I think, at the beginning of this, where we can actually utilize the solar, the power of the sun to actually power our energy needs, and we can be a cleaner, safer, healthier civilization, basically, you know, where humans can live better. We've been burning fossil fuels to power our civilization and our life, and it's brought a lot of changes, and we've grown from the 1900s, you know, for sure, from the beginning of the turn of the century. I mean, my grandparents saw this happen, really, right? And but now we are going to be seeing it, and we are, you know, you can think of all of the changes that we're seeing, and they are sometimes a bit scary. And at the last turn of the century, people were afraid of electricity, they were afraid of cars, and they were afraid of airplanes. I mean, people were very afraid of electricity. People were writing about the rural life and the beauty of it and how it was being destroyed, and the way of life was being destroyed, and it was transformed forever. And so again, we are transforming things. We're talking about electric vehicles, and we're also talking about autonomous vehicles. And we're talking about bioengineering and, you know, a lot of things coming our way. Virtual reality, you know, artificial intelligence, right? You know, we have so many things, as well as clean technology. Clean technology is part of this transformation that's happening at our time. We are seeing it. We're in another revolution. It's a clean energy revolution. And it is exciting. Sometimes it's a little scary for a 20th century kid, which I am, for sure. And but it's something that we're seeing happen right now, real time. You know, Right now, there are a lot of Tesla Model 3s on the road, and you've seen them, and EVs are coming. There's 1 million electric vehicles on the road. China sold 1 million electric vehicles. There's 1 million electric vehicles in the United States on the road. China sold 1 million electric vehicles last year. There's 5 million on the road now. And every year we get more and more electric vehicles. It took a good 5 years for the first 1 million to get on the road, and it took 6 months for the last 1 million to get on the road. And we'll continue to do that. And as our auto industry starts talking about more AVs and an all electric or electric future, we'll see more and more. So I think just like one day we had big, huge cell phones, or big, huge flip phones, or or cordless. I remember the cordless phone where you weren't tethered to your telephone, right? Because I had a cord, and I would talk to my friends in middle school wrapping myself around that cord, and you'd get a long cord so you could move further from one end of the kitchen to the other and actually get something. And then we ended up with a cordless phone. That was awesome. And now we have smartphones that are these powerful computers, that connect us to the entire world. I mean, my father-in-law will Skype with us now to talk to his grandkids, and so clean technology is part of that. We're moving in that direction, and we've seen it. Solar power and wind power is cheaper now at the utility scale to put in than natural gas. So I think fossil fuel is 20th century and 19th century. It's part of the Industrial Revolution that happened at that time. And now we're seeing something new, and clean technology is the new. So it's pretty exciting to be part of that and to be able to see that. I always thought it would have been really cool to be my grandparents and to have seen the last turn of the century and the revolution that happened there. And now I'm actually part of seeing the new transformation happen.
How can our utilities help?
So utilities can be a really important partner, or actually help this transformation happen. If we are running all of our electricity, all of our energy on electricity, they're the ones providing the fuel for our energy needs in our society. And that's actually, they're going to have a huge role in bringing electricity for all of us. So the utility can be a really big part of this, for sure. And hopefully they can help move this forward rather than block it. In some cases, they've been blocking it recently. It's new. Solar panels on people's houses disrupt the status quo of how things have been going, so they've been blocking. But instead of blocking it, they can be facilitators. And they can work with us as customers also to help us do it. So one thing is you can have, and the other thing is we can have the commissioners that can allow for the allocation of funds to do it. It would be helpful because the utilities, many of the private utilities are regulated, and you need the regulators to say, yes, go ahead and invest. And we need our regulators to support this transformation, because sometimes the folks in the utility actually want to do something, but the regulators control the price of electricity. And they say, no, don't do that. It's too expensive. It's going to hurt the ratepayer. So we need the utility to be on board with doing these transformations, because they're at the forefront of it. So there are a few utilities that are very progressive, and they see the future and they want to be part of the future. They don't want to be disrupted, and they want to make it happen. So one, Xcel Energy is actually one very large utility that said they're going to be 100% clean energy by the year 2050, I believe. They said 2050, or maybe it was before. And so they're actually going to start implementing more and more solar and wind technology. Two other utilities, one is private, one is public, is Green Mountain Power of Vermont. They're doing really neat stuff. They're really doing what our utilities should be doing. And Sacramento Municipal District, Utility District, SMUD. My co-author actually Dave Freeman headed SMUD a number of years back. And they're looking at doing all electric homes as well, and they're engaging with the customer. And for the utility, it's really important to have a good relationship with their customer. Reliability is important to them, but believe it or not, they really do care about having a good relationship with us. So the utility could help us a bunch as the consumer and the customer in transforming our homes, because they deliver electricity, and to our buildings, businesses and buildings as well. And Green Mountain Power is doing a great job with that, where they're actually sending folks to people's homes, and they're doing they're doing home energy audits, and then they're helping with finding the contractors, and they're helping finance it, and then they roll all of the price for what they're doing into the electricity bill. So they're really, because financing is a big deal, finding the contractors is a big deal, and just knowing how to do it. We don't have time. So my co-author Dave Freeman talked about every utility should have green doctors who come to your house and basically upgrade your house and make it energy efficient. So Green Mountain Power is actually doing that. Green Mountain Power is going, and they have those folks come in, they bring contractors, they'll help you get solar panels on your roof, they'll help you get energy storage units, they'll help you make it more efficient, put LED lights in, do the insulation you need. They help you get heat pumps and finance that. I think they help with getting electric vehicles as well, and also what you would need for that. From what I've read, they've even helped some customers get off the grid completely. And then they have worked with banks for financing. So you can finance all of this, pay the same price as you would have paid for your normal electricity before, because now you're more efficient. You're not using as much electricity and as much energy as well. Like you'd be paying for natural gas or whatever, or oil or whatever you're powering your heating with. And they roll it into your electricity bill, and it's financed. And then once it's paid off, if you stay in the house long enough, your energy bills are going to go down, because now you have solar panels and energy storage and heat pumps that are 300% efficient instead of 90% efficient, 90-ish% efficient like your natural gas. So that utility is doing all that, because it is very hard to find, it can be hard to find the contractors that you need or get the financing you need. So my parents had gotten a heat pump, and their natural gas furnace went kaput, and I told my father, oh, okay, this is a great time now. Time to get a heat pump. It's really cool. And get this brand or this brand. I've heard they're really good. I checked the Energy Trust of Oregon. They suggested a few contractors, go. And I give it to my dad because he takes care of everything. I didn't think he would have any trouble. But then he was like, oh, I can't find the financing, and this is difficult. And it was about $12,000 for the unit, and it's both a heater and an air conditioner. So it's for both together. And in the end, he chose the heat pump that had 0% financing with it. And it basically was a cold climate heat pump. The contractor said it was good. We've been told it's a good heat pump. Oregon doesn't get very cold, so you don't need as powerful of a cold climate heat pump. If you're in Maine, you're going to need one that goes down to below zero, that can still run at colder temperatures and still be 100% efficient, 300% efficient. Anyway, so he got it, but it wasn't as easy. So the utility, like every utility should be doing what Green Mountain Power is doing. They really should. And that would be enormously helpful for the consumer.
What are the specific policy initiatives that need to be put in place to make all electric America possible?
So to make all electric America possible, we need to basically, if we're going to implement laws, we need to take fossil fuels offline, about 4% to 6% a year. It's been generally said that it should be faster, sooner. By year 2035, we should have 45 to 60% offline. By 2050, zero. Ideally, we could actually have zero by 2035. That would be ideal for us. The chance of getting below 1.5, staying below 1.5 degrees Celsius is better. So we need policies that take that offline. There are some states and cities that have decided to become 100% renewable. And like California and Hawaii and New Jersey have all passed laws to have 100% renewable electricity by the year 2040, 2045. And so passing a law to say, okay, now it's time to have all renewable electricity. Ideally, you would also pass laws to say renewable transport as well, and renewable heating and cooling as well, and industrial processes as well, and so that we continue to work on it and make it doable, where we can do a little bit every year, not go crazy where we don't have to panic, go into our house and take the natural gas furnace out today and put solar panels on today, because it'd be nice if we had Green Mountain Power and we could have them come in and help us do it, but we don't all have a utility or anybody to help us to that extent. So it's the same thing. As a society slowly start taking the fossil fuels offline, or quickly, but doably take them offline, and then begin allocating more and more resources towards clean technology, 21st century technologies. So right now, all of the money that we're putting towards the fossil fuel infrastructure and the subsidies that that's getting, and the Department of Defense spending we're putting towards guarding and transporting our oil, could be allocated now to building a 21st century grid, a 21st century energy infrastructure. So we need laws that will talk about, ideally, we create laws that would talk about doing that. It's happening naturally as the technology becomes better, and cheaper. But we are a civilized society, and we do pass laws, and the market can't always make all of the decisions for us. So ideally, we'd pass some laws to do this as well. The market didn't decide to go fight fascism and get hit, make sure that we dealt with Hitler in World War II, and we've passed civil rights laws and extended the right to vote laws, and those weren't decided by the market. And fighting and securing ourselves from climate change isn't necessarily going to be decided by the market. The market can't say, oh, we have climate change, and the sea level rise will be so much so that it's going to go up to the Statue of Liberty's elbow if we don't do something about it. The market doesn't know that. We know it. So we need to pass laws to secure ourselves. So just in case that technology doesn't happen fast enough, which could happen in a blink of an eye and we'll all be saved, but it could not.
How can or should the U.S. lead in social policy towards effective climate change?
Well, the U.S., as we move to clean technologies, the rest of the world will follow, because we are cultural leaders, we are technological leaders. We have a lot of really smart, cool people in our country, a lot of really smart, cool people from all over the world that come here. And we innovate and we think about making a better future. So as we move from 20th century technology, the rest of the world will do it. Right now, China's actually leading in solar manufacturing and in the solar industry. They're actually leading in wind as well. Denmark is a leader as well. But U.S. is usually third in wind manufacturing with GE. But China has a lot of companies in electric vehicles. China is also a leader in electric vehicle manufacturing. So we're not the only ones, but the U.S. should definitely be the ones to start implementing this. If we pass laws, we can also help do that. And we can also, there's 1 million people without electricity right now. Those 1 million people can skip the age of Edison completely. There's the late Jim Rogers. He passed away recently. He was Duke Energy CEO, and I had spoken with him, and he talked about, he had wrote a book, Lighting America. Not Lighting America, sorry, Lighting the World. And he talked about how those communities could run on solar energy and have microgrids, and that it's actually better for them rather than bringing lines in from central generation somewhere in their countries. And we can also be leaders in that too, and promote this technology that will bring a cleaner, safer, and better future for our better energy future for all of us. So we should be involved, obviously, in the climate talks, United Nations climate talks, and we should be involved in that because that's the future of the world, and we can do that.
How is clean technology a resource?
What's really neat is that clean technology is an amazing resource. We have thought about clean technology or moving to solar and wind because we have to, because of climate change, because we're going to be doomed, if we don't. But the truth is that we should be moving to clean technology even if there were no climate change. I mean, maybe we will be because of the technology, but really we should be because it will be cleaner, it'll be cheaper, it'll be safer. One way is you can think about the hydroelectric dams as an example. Our solar and wind technology are like our hydroelectric dams, and we'll gain the same benefit from those. And anybody who gets energy from hydroelectric dams and electricity for them knows what a great resource those dams are. Basically, the dams were put up and they cost a lot of money to build, but an amazing amount of innovation and progress happened around those dams. First of all, you could clean up the air a bit, and or a lot from the dams, but then electricity is so cheap. So a lot of industry, a lot of places would come around the dams. A lot of industry, a lot of progress, a lot of innovation happens around the dams because the energy is so cheap. Because once it is built, the fuel is free, and then it's flowing, and then you have really cheap electricity. So the same thing will be with your solar and wind technology. You build it, and people say, oh, it's so expensive. No, it's cheap, actually. But you build it, and then it starts producing electricity without the fluctuating costs of fuel. You don't have to worry about that, the transport of fuel. You have the sun. We have the sun. It's amazing, and I think that's us for humans is the future. You take that amazing nuclear reaction happening, up in space is giving us an enormous amount of energy, and it's also fueling the movement of the air, giving us wind. So that's a resource. There's an amazing health resource because of the air pollution that comes from it, as well. There's it's one of the leading causes of death is air pollution from biofuels and fossil fuel burning and what have you. And then you can also, it's a resiliency. It allows for resiliency. Our cities can have their own microgrids. We can have our own energy generation, community solar projects. Somebody just told me about how in Puerto Rico, it was the community building that had solar panels on the roof that everybody was coming to after the hurricane to charge up their oxygen tanks and their medical devices that they needed. So many of the vital functions we have can still be operating. Same thing what happened in New York when the hurricane came. There was, you needed vital services, vital functions, and microgrid can provide that. So it can provide for a city. Your state, if your state has its own generating capacity, obviously it can. Your state can provide for the state, and then your individual communities and towns and cities can also have microgrids, and then you can even have a home, and your home has its own little microgrid. All of these things create resiliency. And then, of course, it's a national defense resource, because again, with the microgrid, and then we can pay for our fuel here at home. We don't have to pay tons of money to protect oil interests abroad and all of the shipping and transport of them and all of the affiliated wars that we're having. We won't necessarily get rid of those now, but it will reduce that impact. So the important thing to think about with renewable energy and clean technology is that this is an amazing resource. We should want to move in this direction even if there were no climate change. Like this is great. I would love my house to have its own small mini microgrid. We just had the power out a few weeks ago, and we were out of power for 2 days. And so this would be something. So when we talk about renewable energy, it doesn't need to be something that we just think for climate change, and it doesn't need to be just a left-wing, let's say, agenda. This should be something. This should be bipartisan, something that we all want, and we can talk about it as a resource rather than just something we have to do. Like, oh, this is something we have to do. Like, no, this is something we want to do.
What does a snapshot of the near future look like?
So the snapshot of the future is really a fun thing to think about. We will have cleaner air, our houses will be cleaner, and we will have more resilient cities and resilient homes for energy. I mean, we just have a snapshot of a better energy future. I don't think our lives will change that much. We will just have more, let's say, democratization of energy, rather than the energy just coming from central generation. It will be distributed everywhere. It'll be on our houses, and it'll be on our churches, and on our other worshiping facilities. It'll be on our city halls or where have you, and it will be cheaper, cleaner, safer. We'll have less health issues. I mean, we'll see asthma go down. We'll see various health issues go down. I mean, it's just moving from the 20th century. I know in Chicago, my dad said when he was in school there, that he'd open his windowsill and you could just wipe the soot off the windowsill. It's kind of like that. We've cleaned up the soot to some extent. We put scrubbers in our coal power plants to make them cleaner, but they're not. They're still producing carbon dioxide, and so are our natural gas plants. So we're not seeing it. We're not seeing the soot always, but we're feeling it. We're feeling the impact. So what we'll do is the future will be just better, cleaner, safer energy future, and moving into we'll be moving into the future. And some of it will be the technology we're using today to get there isn't what we're going to be using in the year 2050 or the year 2040. We're using the personal computer of 1990. I don't know. I think we're a little beyond 1985, right? But we're using that today. We'll have the smartphone of energy technology into the future. And so I think if we can think of it in a positive way and be excited about it, it'll be great. And the other thing is we'll have cool things like the electric car is really fun. And if you have a home, you can charge at home or in your garage. So you won't be going to the gas station all the time. If you don't have it, you may be able to pull up to an electric light or something and plug into the post. In London, I saw some of their lights had places where you could plug your car in. So it's really fun to be able to just plug your car in at night and sleep, wake up, oh, it's charged, okay, and you go off. I mean, there'll be some fun things too. They may be drive autonomously too, but we'll see. So I think that's where we'll see it. We have to think of this as a positive future, as this transformation. It can be, there are some unknowns, of course, what it will be, but it will definitely be something that I think we can all look forward to and be excited about.